Hey everyone, happy Friday. Before we get into our topic, Tara, I have to tell you, I was watching clips from the Turning Point event in Georgia that Trump was at, and it was like this big to do. And RFK Jr. was there, and he got on stage and he was talking about the thing that you brought up with the government changing that code or whatever so they can use lethal force against American citizens. And he was like telling the crowd, like, I don't think you realize just how serious this is. So I love that you were ahead of the curve on that. But yeah, he's aware of it.
Well, it wasn't me. It was Andy Frisella, and we were just sharing the message. But I'm still surprised that nobody else is fucking talking about this. Like, this
Right.
is, like we said last Friday, this is fucking huge. And how is it that it's not like, why is it not on X? Why is
Mhm.
Elon Musk not talking about it?
Yeah. Well, he might now because I think he was
Yeah.
at that event too. But I was just like, okay, I'm glad they at least know about it because before it was like the only person talking about it was Andy Frisella. So hopefully it'll get more and more and more coverage, or at least people who are going to vote are going to hear about it before they go to the polls. But
I was going to
oh
say, you
my
know what?
God.
It'll get coverage. It'll get coverage when something fucking big happens before the election
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they deploy the troops.
Right. Ugh.
Uh, okay. Well, that's fun. Yeah, that's not even our topic for today. And we're going to talk about our shit show border, which I know we talk about this a lot, but like every week there's like new alarming information that gets revealed, and a shit ton has come up in the past week alone. So I want to start with the House Judiciary Committee that released a report yesterday showing that there are nearly 1 million illegal migrants that will just be staying indefinitely in the United States with no consequence and without any possibility of deportation. And this is all because of administrative maneuvering practices by the DOJ and the DHS. And according to the report, the trend shows no sign of stopping. So, over 700,000 of these illegal migrants have either had their cases dismissed, terminated, or administratively closed for unknown reasons. Over 109,000 cases were adjudicated or were not adjudicated, and over 200,000 were just like not even filed at all. And the committee is claiming that immigration judges have basically just been rubber stamping cases that they consider to be non priorities. So I guess if you're not a convicted murderer or rapist, then who cares about your other crimes and you're free to go. There's a report, or the report details a memo that the DHS issued back in 2022 that essentially directed ICE attorneys to promote that these cases be closed and dismissed. Why? Because there are literally millions and millions of backlog cases and they can't keep up with them all. So, what better way to deal with it than to just dismiss them altogether?
And then they don't have to worry about Trump deporting them when he gets in office. Like, what a
Right.
slap in the face to people who are going through the immigration system legally.
Right.
Like I saw on TikTok, there was a German couple that were here on a green card or whatever. They asked for a 2-month extension and they were told no. And it's like, yet they turn around and let other people just stay here, indefinitely. Like, it's just crazy.
I
So
was going
you
to say
mentioned,
that's why they need to just go back, go to Mexico, and then come across the border without their, you
right.
know, green card from where they originally, or whatever, their ID from whatever state or country. My God, I can't speak today. Whatever country they're originally from, and just pretend they're not from there.
Yeah, I know. That's one of my friends that came here legally from Brazil. Like, a lot of people she knows, they're just coming through the Mexican border and she's pissed because she's like, they're just coming in and getting health insurance and benefits and money. And she's like, I should just go back over and come back across the border that way. And I'm like, you should, because why not? Everyone else is doing it. But you mentioned like millions of backlogged cases. Well, there are hundreds of thousands of illegals that are backlogged in Mexico that are waiting there to come to the US after election day, according to the New York Post. So they published an article, and the title of the article was Hundreds of Thousands of Migrants Being Held in Southern Mexico Until Election Day. So the decrease that we've been seeing recently is basically just like pushing off the flow until everyone goes and votes. And then they're just going to let it run wild. And so, like, the article talks about this deal that Blinken and Mayorkas made with Mexico's president in December to, quote, have Mexico deploy 32,500 troops to the US border to round up untold thousands of intending border crossers from the northern precincts and force ship them, which is internal deportation by planes and buses, thousands of miles to Mexico's southern provinces and entrap them in cities like Tapachula and Chiapas state behind militarized roadblocks, end quote. Sounds like some
Oh,
crazy
fuck.
like Hitler shit. But the publisher of the daily newspaper in that city, Tapachula, told the Post that there are 150,000 immigrants there at any given time and an untold number of neighboring cities waiting, just waiting until election day, and then they're free to come into the US. Like, what the fuck? Not
Yep.
surprised, but Jesus. So anyhow, what blows my mind with like this whole topic of the border, and I mean, I don't know why it still blows my mind because it's been happening for a while, but the Biden Harris administration, they undid like every executive action that Trump put in place that was securing the border. And they allowed millions of illegals to flow into our country. And everyone knows it. Like, it's not some secret. But the mind blowing part is that Kamala thinks that just weeks before the election, she could just simply say that she's going to secure the border. And it's like, who is buying this bullshit? But I guess not a lot of people, because even leftist CNN reporters are calling her out on it. And so she did this live town hall with CNN's Anderson Cooper. And surprisingly, like, he pushed her and he asked her some of the same questions that we're always asking, which is, why didn't she do anything sooner? So listen to her response when this guy asks, like, are you going to be giving benefits to illegals moving forward and blah blah blah, and she gives some like nonsense answer, and he kind of calls her out on it, and he's like, that's not the question he asked. And so here's her response.
2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took a number, hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration.
If it was that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action.
I mean, that shocked me coming from Anderson Cooper. Like, he was kind of doing the same thing Brett Baer did, where he was not letting her get away with it. So I was like, damn. But he didn't stop there. I mean, the whole thing was like that. So he also pointed out the fact that she attacked Trump's border wall in the past, but is now like supporting it. And he said, quote, under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project, end quote. So then he asked her, like, is the border wall stupid? Do you think it's still stupid? And listen to her response to that.
Stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came for time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you agreed to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on it? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I'm afraid of good ideas where they occurred.
You don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense, because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
She cannot answer a damn question to save her life. It is so irritating. And let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. It was fixed, Kamala. And then you fucked it up. You took away everything that fixed it. Like, unbelievable. But I love that he got her to admit that the border wall, which she and every other Democrat criticized Trump for, was a good idea after all. Well, maybe he had some more good ideas too, you know? And by the way, CNN fact-checked her claim that Trump only completed 2% of the wall, and they said that was a false claim, which again, I'm shocked. Like, this is CNN. And on their TikTok, all of the commentary is people just bashing her. Total, like, what is going on? So I want to play one other clip real quick of Dana Bash, the CNN anchor, who is not a Trump fan whatsoever. She's super left. And I'm going to play what she had to say after this town hall about Kamala.
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I've been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. And, you know, some people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe, but that's maybe the world that she's living in. And on the question of who she is, people are understanding that a little bit more. What she will do, the question about her legislative priorities, name one, there wasn't one. You know, some more of her personality and her sort of character questions about your weaknesses or what mistakes did you make? Not necessarily the answers there.
Wow.
So what the hell? Are we in the Twilight Zone? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going. Do you think it's just because they have a feeling Trump's going to win, so they're trying to like not look stupid? I'm just so shocked.
I'm totally surprised by this. And I have no answer for that. That's the only thing that I could think is like, what do they know?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. It's weird.
Wow. Very weird. Okay, yeah, that totally threw me off. I hadn't heard that clip before, and now my wheels are turning. Okay, well,
Sorry, didn't mean to derail you there, but my wheels
No.
have been turning nonstop because I'm like, this is CNN, and like, I don't know, maybe because they've lost so many viewers and ratings
Yeah.
by bashing him. I don't know, but it's just strange, especially from Anderson Cooper and Dana Bash, who like
Right.
have done nothing but bash Trump for years. So
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, well, back to the migrant issue. I know that we talk a lot about migrant crime. And by the way, just as a side note, the number of known Border Patrol encounters with migrants that have been confirmed on the terror watch list is now up to 400 for 2024 alone. Like, that's just the known, not the gotaways that we have no ability to track at all, just the known. But there's also issues related to like diseases that migrants have been bringing into our country unchecked. And one concerning issue is the rising rates of tuberculosis cases. And this is all being reported by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or FAIR. And they released a report on Wednesday showing that the rates of TB in the United States have been steadily increasing since 2021. Infection rates rose by 34% between 2020 and 2023, and 76% of the cases in 2023 occurred in the migrant population. And the biggest concern is the risk being posed to children who might be in classrooms with infected migrant children, because TB is like a highly communicable disease and it can have long-term health consequences. And I was reading something about how like treating one person can cost upwards of $500,000. The study found that states and metropolitan areas with high migrant populations have higher TB rates than those with smaller migrant populations, and that some categories of migrants like don't undergo any health screenings at all, so we have no idea what they're bringing into the country. There was also, at the same time that this study was released, Louisiana announced a lawsuit against the Biden-Harris admin over a Chinese illegal migrant who potentially exposed hundreds of people to a rare drug-resistant form of TB. And Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel, she called it a dereliction of duty by President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Secretary Mayorkas. And now the state of Louisiana is demanding that federal immigration authorities stop releasing detainees into Louisiana until they're medically cleared by the state's Department of Health.
See, this pisses me off, especially as a mom, because for my kids to go to school, they have to have all of their vaccinations, a physical, like the whole 9 yards. Yet, are any of these migrant kids providing documentation? No. I mean, they're just letting them into public schools and hospitals and everything else. And it's just like, again, they're getting this treatment that is better than what the American tax-paying citizens get. And it's bullshit. So Louisiana, you mentioned, but that's not the only attorney general that's going after Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas. So the Texas attorney general, Ken Paxton, announced this week that he's suing the Biden-Harris administration, including officials like Mayorkas, for refusing to uphold federal law, requiring the federal government to assist states in verifying citizenship of people registered to vote. And so Paxton had sent the administration a list of 450,000 individuals who registered to vote without a Texas driver's license or ID. And the administration, of course, failed to verify citizenship, which is crazy. Like, this is crazy. Almost 500,000 people.
And Texas has very strict voting laws.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's why he's suing, because it's like they're not doing their part to help the states. And you think about like the last election was won with 80,000 votes. And now we're talking about just one state that has 450,000 potentially illegal immigrants registered to vote. And if it's happening in Texas, well, then it's likely happening in swing states too, because every state is a border state now. So this pisses me off. I do feel a little bit better just knowing that they're more on top of it now than they were in 2020. And to that point, I want to play this clip of Laura Trump warning people on what's going to happen if they illegally vote. Oh, hold on.
We have had a big goal of recruiting 100,000 people to volunteer as poll watchers, poll workers, legal experts on the ground. And we said, I don't know, 100,000 is a lot. I'm happy to report that we have trained 200,000 people across this country to do that. So our message is very clear. If you are a person who is considering cheating in our elections, we will find you. We will track you down and we will prosecute you to the full extent of the law. And if you're an illegal citizen voting in our election, we'll track you down and prosecute you to the full extent of the law, and you're leaving this country. How's that sound?
So it's like
Sounds
at
good to
least
me.
she's yeah, at least she's on top of it. And I'm glad to hear there's going to be 200,000 poll workers, but it's like, is that even going to be enough knowing what's happening just in Texas alone?
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more stories about this as we get closer to the election with non-citizens trying to vote. And I think this is going to be a big issue, and that's why migrants have just been filtered into all of these states all across the country in communities that are more conservative to
Mhm.
bring this migrant population in. It's fucking crazy. And speaking of which, like I want to bring attention to something that was just recently revealed in Tennessee because on Wednesday, Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, he announced that his office uncovered a scheme by the Biden-Harris admin to release a massive number of illegal migrants into Tennessee. And the plan was like ultimately derailed because they had pushback from the governor and a bunch of lawmakers in the state. But this goes back to 2022 when Texas Governor Bill Lee found out that ICE was coordinating with the fucking NGOs and local offices in Nashville because Nashville is a fairly liberal city in Tennessee. And they had this plan to release thousands of single adult male migrants from ICE detention facilities in Louisiana and filter them into Tennessee. And many of them had criminal backgrounds, including for homicide, rape, sexual assault, armed robbery, kidnapping, drug trafficking, burglary, and fraud. And there's a whole email trail of messages detailing the Nashville mayor's office, basically discussing the logistics of disgusting. Did I say disgusting?
Well, it is
Discussing.
disgusting.
It is disgusting. Yeah, discussing the logistics of this plan and how they were going to bring him in and where they were going to put them and what they were going to do. And like the only reason it didn't happen was because the governor intervened with the state attorney and they took action to stop it. And it's like we're seeing this time and time again with liberal cities in even just like the non, what do you call them? The states that are not super,
Non-sanctuary
yeah,
city.
non-sanctuary states with sanctuary cities, like red states, or what do they call them? Green, pink, states that aren't red or blue.
Purple, right?
Purple. Yeah, yeah. Wow. I'm so sorry to all our listeners for me today. Like purple states that have sanctuary cities in the state. Like this is happening all over the country. We've been talking about this for like ongoing 2 years now. And it's just fucking insane. And at least Tennessee didn't allow it to happen, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know if they know these people are criminals. Instead of sending them to Tennessee, why can't you just send them back through the Mexico
Right.
border? Like, I don't understand why this is not an option. It's bullshit.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, okay, if you want to bring in all of these migrants to vote Democrat, why the fuck are you bringing in criminals? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me. But another alarming story that I read in the New York Post details the cost of the migrant crisis. And we talk about this a lot too, but I'm going to talk about it more today because the numbers are staggering. So in 2023 alone, it was $150 billion. And this was another thing that was researched by FAIR. And they calculated that 67 billion came from the federal government, but the rest was paid for by state and local governments, mostly at the cost of having to cut back on services for citizens. So, for example, in order to pay an estimated $90 million for illegal migrant care in the coming year, which by the way is on top of the 70 million that they spent this year, the city of Denver is cutting $45 million from their budget for next year that would normally be allocated for city services. So this includes an $8.4 million cut from the police department budget, a $2.5 million cut from the fire department budget, and this is crazy to me, but Denver's program provides up to 6 months of rent-free housing and services for migrants. Then we have New York, which we know is always a shit show. New York City agencies across the board have cut their costs by 5% because the city is spending $2.3 billion for housing alone, just housing for migrants in the last 2 years, in 2023 and 2024. And I think we talked about this back when it happened. Initially, there were cuts to NYPD and the fire department, but I think it got so much negative press that they ended up backtracking and refunding both of those departments. So in order to pay for their migrant crisis, they cut $58 million from the library fund. They cut $53 million from the City Cultural Institutions Fund, and then several millions from early childhood programs. And New York City, you think of arts and culture, well, fuck that, because we have to pay for migrants. And we've talked about, this insane cost of housing migrants in this, what I consider to be a sanctuary shithole that is New York City. But currently, Stephanie, there's 150 hotels that are providing rooms and food for migrants, and they get 30 to 60 days of free housing, including laundry services, help with childcare. And do you know what this is costing per night? $352 is the average. I don't know about you, but I've stayed in beautiful rooms in 5-star hotels for less than $352 a night. And things are so bad in New York City that Mayor Adams now also has the city paying for one-way plane tickets to send illegal migrants to whatever other state they want to go to. And the top destination is reportedly Texas, with over 4,500 migrants already being sent back there. And then other top destinations are Illinois, Florida, and Colorado. And according to New York's Deputy Mayor Fabian Levy, these aren't chartered buses. These are individual plane tickets that they're purchasing after they, quote, sit down with migrants and hear what they want to do, end quote.
And see, what do they do when these cities push back against the Biden-Harris administration? They go after them and arrest them, just like they're doing with Mayor Adams. I guarantee the only reason that man has gotten arrested and his whole team is facing charges is because he called it out as bullshit and made everyone in the country realize just how bad the migrant issue is. And so now they're taking him out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is one thing we have to thank New York City for. And so let's talk about Chicago. So the city of Chicago has a $982 million projected budget gap because of migrant spending. In South Portland, Maine, property taxes have increased to pay for the migrant crisis. This is crazy. During a city council meeting back in August, the mayor actually suggested that elderly residents could remortgage their houses as a last resort if they couldn't afford to pay for the tax increase. And he later apologized and said it was an inappropriate remark. But then the city just decided to allocate $1.9 million in its 2025 budget for migrants, and only $100,000 was approved for the senior property tax relief fund. So it's basically telling elderly people with homes, go fuck yourselves, right? It's completely unbelievable how American citizens are getting it completely screwed to pay for illegal migrants. And FAIR also took a look at how this $67 million was spent by the federal government in 2023. And they found that 6.6 million was supposedly intended for education. Over 25 billion went to medical costs. 11.5 billion went to federal welfare programs, and 23.1 billion went to law enforcement costs. And this is all related to the migrant crisis, not for regular American citizens. These billions and billions of dollars, this 6.6 million, 67 million, all went to the migrant crisis. And these costs do not include the 640 million that was allocated to FEMA for illegal migrants for fiscal year 2024. And you can go look at the New York Post article, or there's the actual report released by FAIR, which is linked in the article. And you can see a breakdown of all the state and local offices that have received the most FEMA funding for migrants, which of course, New York City is the highest at $81 million. There's also a chart that details how much money FEMA has allocated for NGOs, and it's fucking staggering. And the top NGOs have received upwards of $164 million. And yet hurricane victims who are American citizens can apply to get $750 of FEMA relief, but they have $164 million to give to fucking migrants just through the NGO program. Like, it's fucking insane. And American citizens who are victims of the hurricane would be better off pretending to be illegal migrants. Like, it's fucking unbelievable to me.
I feel like anyone who's going to keep voting for this bullshit better open up their home to take in some of these migrants. You know, like it's absolutely insane. It has to just be that people don't, they're not paying attention and they don't know this is happening. Like, I can't think of any other reason why you would still be okay with this at this point in the game. It's just like so aggravating. This is our money. Our money is being given to migrants and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like, bullshit. Gets me so freaking angry, which is why I put together like a mashup of the viral moments from that live town hall with Anderson Cooper of Kamala just making an ass of herself, because I knew we would need it after getting pissed off hearing about all the migrant bullshit that's happening. So here is that clip. Let's see here. Okay.
Any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
To in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues. And I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question. Not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess. And some might call that a weakness, especially if you're, in an...
Like, what? She just is unbelievable.
I have to say, in the words of Mel Gibson, she has the IQ of a fence post.
Seriously.
I was actually very surprised.
So bad. So bad. She can't answer a question to save her life. And it's going to be bad. And so today Trump is going on Joe Rogan, and that's going to be viral.
Yes.
And she's got that going around as viral clips. So, I mean, again, if you're voting for her at this point, it's like, I really question your sanity, your IQ. I mean, it's so bad. So bad. So you can go ahead and play those clips for your friends this weekend and have a little laugh, at least, at the insanity that's happening right now in the United States. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Monday.